time. And therefore never feel any discomfort or pain, become used to these circumstances. When they do encounter a sudden illness, however, they realize that good health is a blessing from God alone. That is because one better understands the value of something when it is taken away, or when one no longer has it. As the famous Islamic scholar Sayyid Nursi said, "If there was no cold, heat could not be comprehended. If there was no hunger, food would afford no pleasure. If there was no sickness, no pleasure would be had from good health." Someone who is not fully submitted to God before falling ill may, thanks to that illness, now acquire these pleasing attributes. Since he has displayed patience in the face of difficulty, submitted to God, and displayed a pleasing attitude, that illness may be a means whereby he receives a greater reward in the hereafter. Someone who reflects on all these things never complains when he falls ill. He praises God, thinks about God's compassion, and how his illness is the product of God's mercy, and is patient. The prayer of Prophet Abraham in the face of sickness is a fine example for all believers. He who created me and guides me, he who gives me food and gives me drink, and when I am ill, it is he who heals me. He who will cause my death, then give me life. He who I sincerely hope will forgive my mistakes on the day of reckoning. My Lord, give me right judgment and unite me with the righteous. The verbal assaults of the unbelievers. Methods such as mockery and slander, and even physical attacks. When we examine the lives of the prophets and of the devout Muslims around them, we see that the lives of these blessed individuals were spent in struggle against unbelievers. It is at this point that we encounter one of the most striking characteristics of the prophets and the believers who followed them. Their mature behavior in the peace and submission of knowing that all the events they encountered, no matter how difficult the circumstances, actually came from God. These superior attributes, which stem from their profound belief in God, represent an excellent role model for all Muslims. Unbelievers have at all times employed tactics designed to trouble the prophets and devout believers, wear them down, and turn them back to false religions. Yet believers always acted in the certain knowledge that these ugly attacks would always be resolved in an auspicious way, and that their honesty would eventually be revealed. It is emphasized in the Quran that lies and slanders that might appear to work against believers are in fact auspicious and not bad at all. This is described in the following terms in one verse by citing an incident from the time of our Prophet. May God bless him and grant him peace. There is a group of you who propagated the lie. Do not suppose it to be bad for you. Rather, it is good for you. Every one of them will incur the evil he has earned, and the one who took it on himself to amplify it will receive a terrible punishment. Societies made up of unbelievers have at all times regarded the way that the faithful follow the path of God, live by His religion, and communicate His message as a threat to their own religions. For that reason, they generally resorted to such methods as mockery and slander, as we have just seen, in order to wear believers down. When they saw that this was inadequate, they tried various other methods, such as issuing threats, imprisonment, torture, and banishment. The mistreatment to which believers were sometimes subjected during their struggle with the unbelievers is an indication of the excesses of the society of the unbelievers. Yet in return, believers always looked on the reactions and treatments they were subjected to with an auspicious eye. We can derive great wisdom from an account of an incident which took place during the time of our prophet. It is reported that in the incident in question, the believers assaulted by unbelievers from all sides were tested and subjected to a violent tremor. At such a troubled time, the hypocrites made up various excuses and fled, thus giving themselves away. Thanks to such a moment of difficulty, the hypocrites who had long lived concealed among the community of the believers, and who had sickness in their hearts, were brought out into the open. In this incident, the believers saw the auspicious nature of the difficulties they faced, and since they lived in accordance with God's verses, their faith was strengthened, and their devotion to Him increased still further. When the believers saw the Confederates, they said, "This is what God and His messenger promised us. God and His messenger told us the truth." It only increased them in faith and in submission. Like all the other prophets, our prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, sent as a blessing to all the worlds, encountered a great many difficulties during the course of his life. With the patience and submission he displayed at such times, he represents a fine role model for all Muslims. When our prophet left Makkah, the pagans followed with the aim of killing him. Our prophet sought shelter in a cave to hide from them. But the pagans came up to the mouth of the cave in which the prophet was hiding. At such a troubled time, our prophet told the believer alongside him not to be despondent.